In 1865, 4 million black Americans were freed from slavery. Most of them owned nothing. No land, no tools, no money, nothing but their labor and whatever knowledge they had carried inside them through generations of forced work on other people's soil. The government promised 40 acres and a mule, then took the promise back. Most history books stop there, at the broken promise, at the poverty, at everything that was taken. But something else happened that those same books rarely mention. Between 1865 and 1910, in just 45 years, black Americans acquired more than 16 million acres of farmland, against Jim Crow laws, against violent intimidation, against banks that wouldn't lend to them, against a government that was actively working against them. They built farms, they built towns, they built institutions, they built empires, and almost nobody taught you about it. These are the black farmers who built what the history books forgot to tell you about. Farmer number 1, Isaiah Montgomery, and the town he built from Wilderness Mound Bayou, Mississippi, 1887. Isaiah Montgomery was born into slavery on the plantation of Joseph Davis, the brother of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. He learned to read in secret. He managed the plantation store as a young man. He watched everything. After emancipation, he tried. He farmed the land he knew. He built a business. Then the white men who ran the county made it clear that what he built was not going to be allowed to stand. So Isaiah Montgomery did something remarkable. In 1887, he led a group of black families deep into the Mississippi Delta, into land so thick with forest and swamp that nobody else wanted it. They cleared it with their hands. They drained it. They broke it. And on that cleared ground, Isaiah Montgomery founded Mound Bayou, an all-black town built entirely on farming. By 1907, Mound Bayou had grown to 4,000 people, farming 30,000 acres of Delta land. It had its own bank, its own newspaper, its own cotton gin, its own oil mill, its own school system. Booker T. Washington visited and called it a jewel of the Delta. President Theodore Roosevelt visited too. Isaiah Montgomery had been born the property of a Confederate family. He died the founder of a town. Farmer number 2, the man who invented how you buy food today. Tuskegee, Alabama, 1890s, 1930s. You've heard of George Washington Carver, but what you were taught was the peanut story. 300 products from a peanut. A nice story, a tidy story. Here is the real story. By the 1890s, cotton had exhausted the soil of the entire American South. The land was worn out, and the farmers, black and white alike, had no idea what to do next. George Washington Carver did, working from a laboratory at the Tuskegee Institute. With equipment he built himself from scrap, Carver developed a system of crop rotation that restored depleted southern soil. Peanuts, sweet potatoes, cowpeas, planted in rotation with cotton. The soil came back, but black farmers who grew peanuts and sweet potatoes had no market to sell them to. Carver solved that too. He developed more than 300 uses for the peanut, not to be clever, but to create demand, to build a market for a crop that black farmers could actually grow and sell. He drove his findings directly to farming communities on what he called the Jessup Agricultural Wagon, a mobile classroom that brought science to the fields. Instead of waiting for farmers to come to him, the man didn't just do chemistry. He built an economic system for an entire population of farmers who had been locked out of every other one. Farmer number 3, the alliance that nobody remembers. The American South, 1886-1892. In 1886, a group of black farmers in Texas formed an organization. They called it the Colored Farmers National Alliance and Cooperative Union. Within 6 years, it had grown to 1.2 million members across 12 states. 1.2 million black farmers organized together, buying supplies in bulk to get better prices, pooling money to help members buy land, running cooperative stores, building their own economic infrastructure. From the ground up, they worked alongside, but separate from, the White Farmers Alliance, which had 3 million members of its own. Together, they represented one of the largest organized farmer movements in American history. The Colored Farmers Alliance pushed for the same things every farmer needed: fair railroad rates, relief from crushing debt, access to credit that didn't destroy them. They were met with violence. Their leaders were threatened. Their strikes were broken. In 1891, when black cotton pickers in Arkansas walked off the fields demanding higher wages, the response was swift and brutal. 15 men were killed. Their leader, R.M. Humphrey, fled. The alliance collapsed by 1892. But for 6 years, 6 extraordinary years, 1.2 million black farmers had built something that the richest men in the South were genuinely afraid of. Farmer number 4, the man who invented the CSA. Tuskegee, Alabama, 1960s-1980s. If you have ever picked up a farm share, a weekly box of vegetables, from a local farm you paid for in advance, you are participating in a system invented by a black farmer named Booker T. Whatley. Whatley was an agriculture professor at Tuskegee University who spent decades watching small black farms fail. For the same reason, they were dependent on the commodity market. One bad price season and the whole operation went under. In the 1960s and 70s, Whatley developed what he called the Clientele Membership Club, a model where customers paid a farm in advance for a share of the season's harvest. The farm got guaranteed income before a seed went in the ground. The customer got fresh local food all season. No middleman, no commodity price risk. He published his system in a book called How to Make $100,000 Farming 25 Acres. The white agricultural establishment ignored it, but the model spread anyway. Today it's called Community-Supported Agriculture, CSA, and it supports thousands of small farms across the United States and around the world. The man who built the financial model that is saving small farms right now was a black professor at an HBCU in Alabama, whom most farmers have never heard of. Farmer number 5, the credit union that fed a county. North Carolina, 1920s. After World War I, John W. Mitchell came home to North Carolina. He had served his country. He came back to a state that didn't particularly want him to prosper. Black farmers in his county were being strangled by credit. They couldn't get loans from white banks, so they bought their supplies on credit from white merchants at prices that were set by the merchant, payable at harvest, and impossible to get out from under. It was sharecropping with a different name. Mitchell had a different idea. He traveled 3 counties, sometimes by bicycle, sometimes by horseback, organizing black farmers to pool their money. Out of those meetings came the Eastern Columbus Credit Union, one of the first black-owned agricultural credit unions. In the American South, farmers who joined could borrow money at rates they could actually repay. They could buy supplies together in bulk. They could negotiate. For the first time, they had the one thing the system had always denied them: leverage. Mitchell never owned the biggest farm in the county, but the farms that survived because of what he built fed families for 3 generations. In 1910, black Americans owned 16 million acres of farmland. By 1997, they had lost more than 90% of it. Not because they failed, because the systems built against them, violent, legal, financial, governmental, were stronger than any one family, any one town, any one alliance could hold back forever. But here is what those systems could not erase: the knowledge that a man born in slavery could clear 30,000 acres of Mississippi swamp and build a town on top of it, that a scientist with a lab made from scrap could save the soil of an entire region, that 1.2 million farmers, organized together, could make the richest men in the South afraid, that one man on a bicycle could build the thing that kept his neighbors on their land, that another man's idea, ignored for decades, is the model keeping small farms alive today. The empires they built were real. The fact that you weren't taught about them doesn't make them any less so. New stories every week on Deep Furrow.